Welcome back to the Emily Show. Lots to talk about this week, but we are only getting into 2 stories, and there is lots and lots to talk about because I promised you I would follow up on the Denise Richards and Aaron Phypers divorce. You might know Denise Richards from Wild Things and Starship Troopers and The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and you might know Aaron from being Denise's husband on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And you've probably seen the headlines about their divorce battle. Today, we're going behind the headlines to talk about what has been filed in court. And we will be talking about a recent win that Denise Richards had in court ahead of a hearing later this week on August 8th. So there is much to catch up with in court documents. Because there are allegations of DV here, I'm not going to be going through every single detail from Denise Richards. That has been thoroughly explored in the media. I am not going to go through every allegation. I will be going over that more broadly and then going into the court documents, but I will link some resources down below if you want to look more deeply into some of those stories and take a look at that. But I'm not going to go into every detail of that. There are allegations, and we will talk about how those can impact court and how those impact the proceedings happening in court. But my focus, as always, is really on what these court proceedings are and what we know. And things like, well, the expenses that are broken down in Aaron's request for spousal support. We're going to take a look at that. But also, Alec Baldwin is back in our headlines with his lawsuit over the Rust prosecution. And we need to talk about that just a little bit because it's not done yet. So let's get into it. I'm legal analyst Emily D. Baker, yes, also a lawyer, and this is The Emily Show. I break down the pop culture, entertainment, and high-profile cases that we're all talking about. I know you want the facts, so let's get into it. First, Emily, there was no episode last week. I know I was traveling to go see DCI and watch the Cavaliers perform Shapeshift Live, among other bands. So yes, traveling has definitely upended some of the podcast uploads. Don't worry, that's going to continue because finals are coming up later this week in Indianapolis. So if you want to follow along some of the behind the scenes, you can do that in the Law Nerd app if you're part of the Law Nerd Lounge, and you can do that on Instagram. That's where I share a lot of those behind the scenes because yes, Emily D. Baker is Emily D. banned for another week or so while we go off to finals in Indianapolis. And then hopefully my brain will resume, well, high school marching band season. So we're just in it, but we will not be talking about band quite as much just yet. So for all of you that are interested in being able to watch that, I will put a link down below to Flow Marching where you can find finals. If you want to sign up for a month of Flow Marching, you can find all the finals in Indianapolis there and watch everything from Thursday through Saturday. And well, we can see if the Boston Crusaders walk away with their first championship title. In other news, Alec Baldwin's lawsuit against the prosecutor and Carrie Morrissey for the Rust prosecution. I talked about it quite a while ago when he filed that malicious prosecution lawsuit. That lawsuit has been dismissed by the judge. Does that mean it's all the way gone? Well, for now it is. Let's take a look at what the judge said in dismissing this lawsuit. This was filed on July 29th, 2025. Disposition order for lack of prosecution. This is the court dismissing this case sua sponte for nothing happening. This matter having come before the court on its own motion. The court brought this up on their own motion, saying, why is your shit sitting on my docket? It appearing that no significant action has been taken in 180 or more days in connection with any and all pending claims. It is therefore ordered that all pending claims are dismissed without prejudice. Without means that if they are still within the statute of limitations, then this lawsuit can be brought again. But the court's dismissing it, saying you're not doing anything, so get off our docket. You don't just get to hang out and take up space. Within 30 days after service of this order, any party may move for reinstatement. If other parties have filed an appearance, movement shall comply with notice and notice them. Failure to comply with these requirements will result in the denial of the motion without hearing. It is further ordered that all writs, judgments, final orders, or stipulations previously filed herein shall remain in full force and effect unless otherwise noted. And the judge signed this in the District Court of Santa Fe County, New Mexico. So the court said, you're not doing anything. Get off my docket. And I'm not surprised because the court wants to see cases moving forward. And if after 180 days, the case is not moving forward, the court is going to yeet it. But Law 360 reached out to Baldwin's attorneys and they gave Law 360 a statement, which I thought was very interesting. So we're going to take a real quick look at Alec Baldwin's attorney's statement regarding the dismissal on the malicious prosecution case that he brought after the dismissal of the criminal case in New Mexico. The headline from Law 360 is Baldwin eyes deal over failed Rust trial with suit dormant. If you're not a lawyer, I don't know if that headline even makes sense, but let's jump into it. Law 360 said Alec Baldwin's lawsuit in New Mexico State Court against prosecutors and others involved in his botched involuntary manslaughter, they say case, but trial, in the Rust film shooting has been temporarily thrown out, but the actor-producer's attorneys said Thursday that they've been in settlement discussions and will move to reinstate the suit if talks fail, which is interesting because normally you would file notice with the court and say, hey, we are in settlement talks. Can we get a stay for X amount of time before we begin discovery? They go on to say that Baldwin's attorney, Luke from Quinn Emanuel, in New York told Law 360 in email on Thursday that the court dismissed the matter without prejudice because we have been waiting to prosecute the case. He added, quote, we have been in good faith settlement discussions with the parties to the lawsuit and will be refiling promptly if these discussions are not promptly and favorably resolved. What Baldwin's attorney is saying is that they are trying to settle this. I don't know what they want. What are you going to get from a settlement? Attorney's fees? An apology? I don't know what they're going to get. They go on to give a quick background saying Baldwin filed suit in January after the Santa Fe district attorney and other local officials and a pair of special prosecutors, including Carrie Morrissey, who led the state's case against the actor during his involuntary manslaughter trial, which ended in dramatic fashion a year ago. It feels like it's been 700 years ago. Baldwin's complaint alleges that the defendants mishandled evidence, defamed him, and maliciously abused the judicial process. Well, they definitely mishandled evidence. That's why their case got yeeted in the middle of trial. During what was supposed to be the third day of testimony in Baldwin's closely watched trial, a judge found prosecutors had willfully withheld key ammunition evidence. I don't think she said it was key. The court said it was material. I think there's a difference because I don't think it was key evidence. I think it was, in fact, material evidence. And maybe that's a difference without a distinction for many. I think key makes it sound more than it was. It doesn't matter. It came to light in the middle of trial and the trial got yeeted. My pickiness aside, withheld ammunition evidence from the defense and the case was permanently dismissed. In subsequent order backing her ruling, the Judge Summer, found that Morrissey, the special prosecutor on that case, yes, lots of special prosecutors, wild and out. The special prosecutor on that case had intentionally and deliberately kept evidence from the defense, given inconsistent testimony during an evidentiary hearing, and had elicited false testimony from a witness. I really do worry that if you are watching the Emily D. Baker live streaming channel, you think that it is somewhat normal that prosecutors are testifying in cases. It is definitely not normal. It is the very outside example of what should be happening in cases. But in some of these high-profile cases, we are seeing the prosecutors be held to account by the court. And if you did not see my, I don't know if I would call it commentary because I was buffering half of the time. If you did not watch along in disbelief with me, Adam Lally's hearing in a different homicide trial in Massachusetts regarding turning over evidence, I'll link it. It's on the live stream channel. And we may be back in court on Tuesday to see the follow-up of that hearing if it is streamed. But the judges in Massachusetts have been push-pulling over what gets streamed and what doesn't. So we'll see if that is publicly available. The article goes on to say that Judge Summers' scathing order concluded that the state's level of culpability rises to the level of willful and deliberate misconduct. And I don't disagree. It'll be interesting to see how this settles and what it settles for. I'm not quite sure if Baldwin's going to be asking for a statement and apology or attorney's fees. I was interested to see how this case would move forward, and it just hasn't. But if it is revived in court or if the settlement is made known publicly, I will keep you in the loop on it because I am curious to see how it resolves. And in all the cases I've seen filed for malicious prosecution, the fact that Carrie Morrissey, after the court's dismissal, went back and tried to appeal that dismissal was wild. So I was interested to see how the courts would evaluate it. And we might not get that chance because it might just resolve outside of court, which Better for the parties, I'm sure, but we then don't really get the answers, which is always a bummer. Thank you to today's sponsor, Honeylove. If you have been sleeping on not only soft, but lightweight and cooling underpinnings, now is the time. You know Honeylove has the go-to shapewear and bras that A, are made with your comfort in mind, but B, also keep everything a little bit slim without making you hot, which during the summer is a 10 out of 10 for me. And you might not know about Honeylove's newest innovation, the Mesh Sculpt. It is the ultimate for summer shapewear because it is lightweight shapewear that also offers actual hold. Mesh Sculpt is breathable and lightweight without sacrificing the power of shapewear that you want. So it keeps you cool while still delivering the support and silhouette that you're looking for. So if you are ready to do something for you and treat yourself to the most comfortable shapewear on the market, it is time to check out Honeylove. And you're going to save 20% off site-wide. Yep, site-wide at honeylove.com/lawnerd. That's right. Use our exclusive link to get 20% off site-wide at honeylove.com/lawnerd. And if they ask where you found them, be sure to let them know it's The Emily Show. So get ready to experience the new standard in shapewear with Honeylove. Let's get back to today's episode. Speaking of things that resolve out of court, divorce cases are one of those things that really often resolve in settlement outside of court. I don't know if we're going to see that happen in the Denise Richards divorce, but at least at the outset of this case, I honestly hope that we do for all of the parties involved. This has already, in the very short time since it's been filed, become a bit of a media storm, and from the outside looking in, not a great situation for any of those involved. As we get into covering this, I'm going to go through the court documents, but Denise Richards is making numerous and substantial allegations of domestic violence and domestic abuse. There are 2 orders of the court now that are restraining orders and a new emergency order that was a big win, I think, for Denise Richards and her legal team that we're going to talk about. I am not going to get into every detail of the allegations she is making. The media has well covered those if you want to go find them. She has submitted evidence and photographs of a black eye. I'm not going to show that on this podcast, but it is well and truly out in the media if that is something you want to go look for. I really want to focus this in on what's happening in court and how court will address the divorce proceedings alongside of these allegations, because there are not criminal proceedings going on alongside this at this point, but there are quite a lot of allegations, some which could be criminal, depending on if it goes that direction. We're going to talk about that too, because it will all play into the divorce proceeding. But the things that we learned from Denise Richards' filings, I will point out. The things that we've learned from court up till now, I will point out. And there is a hearing set for August 8th to take the temporary restraining order and make it more permanent. We will see what happens in court, though the media has asked if they can record that, and those requests have been denied by the court. So media will have to be present in court. I'm sure someone will be in Los Angeles, but media has to be present in court for us to have any reporting on what happens on August 8th in court. I suspect that the court will extend the orders in this case. At this point, Denise Richards' estranged husband is representing himself. I have not seen any filings through the end of July and even the very beginning of August indicating that he has legal counsel now. So it looks like he is still representing himself, which means her lawyers are having to talk to him directly, which can keep the parties really locked at odds and make things even more difficult to settle if there's no lawyer on the other side saying, hey, this is how this is going to go. We're also going to take a look a little bit at one of the Real Housewives reunions, where an incident that played out on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills when Denise was on that show played out and was asked about at the reunion. We're going to take a look at that towards the end of the episode, and it'll be timestamped if you want to opt out, where they are talking about something that was said that was caught on camera that was unsettling. Will things caught on camera in Real Housewives of Beverly Hills play out in court? Yes, they can. And we've seen this in other cases. But yes, if there are interactions between the two parties, in this case, Denise and her husband, that played out on camera, it can come into court. And her earnings, of course, and things like that will come into court as well. So let's take a look at the initial filing because it was Aaron that filed for divorce here. And we're going to look at that initial filing and then some of the financial information that he shared, because I am always very curious when we are looking at how people break down their expenses, because at times I just can't wrap my head around it. And this is one of those times. Okay, taking a look at the divorce petition that was filed by Aaron Phypers. And I think if you watch Real Housewives or anything in the Bravo verse, you probably saw the headlines break as this filing went down. It seemed that people were alerted to it immediately. He is representing himself pro per, but I don't know if the address and phone number he put up are business or home, and so I'm not putting those up. So you'll see that he's listed himself at the top of this document as in pro per, meaning he's representing himself. This is a petition for dissolution of marriage, aka divorce, indicating that he is married, that they have been married, that they got married on September 8th, 2018, and they separated on July 4th, 2025, and that they have no minor children together. This filing took place on July 7th, so we normally see a longer period of separation in a lot of divorce filings, but this is following right on Denise's allegations of an incident on July 4th and some incidents leading up to that. And then later in the court filings, we will see a text message Denise sent to Aaron's mother. And in that text message, she says, I'm going to be filing for divorce. That text was on July 4th. And she says, I'm going to be filing for divorce. It seems to me that he went to file this ahead of her filing. In this case, I don't think that's going to do him any favors being the first to file, but he was the first to file without counsel. This is in California. He lists the divorce as irreconcilable differences. He lists that he is seeking spousal support or partner support to him. He is the petitioner. He is also seeking and claiming certain items of specific property, which he lists as all power tools and a Indian 2018 Dark Horse motorcycle and a GT 500 Shelby. So he is claiming those separate items of property. He says that there is a separate property declaration. It's kind of a separate property declaration, but we'll take a look at it because in seeking spousal support, he is listing their monthly expenses, which are maybe outside the norm of what you and I see in our monthly expenses. We are turning to the second filing, which is the income and expense declaration. You might have heard something about this in the media because it is a interesting declaration. Aaron lists himself as self-employed with a wellness center that he started November 9th, 2018, which is interesting to me because didn't he just say that he and Denise were married September 2018 and that his business started November 9th, 2018? But as I remember from the show, they met through his work. So was this a different location that they started after they were married? Because the whole retelling of how they met was that she was seeing him at work and then that relationship turned like physical, like in his office. And her first season on Real Housewives, she was talking quite a lot about that. And there was a little bit of me just going, but if he's some sort of wellness treatment provider and this relationship morphed into physical, I have more questions. So it's interesting to me that this is listed after the marriage, because then she would be entitled to half of his business, but I don't know if there's even any profit there because he's listing that he is now unemployed. Now, at the beginning, he says employer self-employed. Again, he's pro per. He's not filing this with a lawyer, but he says employer self-employed, and then he says unemployed, but he doesn't list himself as unemployed. Are you unemployed or are you not unemployed? He says if unemployed, date job ended, and he says October 1st, 2024. So has he not been working since 2024 and why? I have questions. He indicates his high school completion, 2 years of college, and then he lists other parties' income. Now, this is Denise Richards' income that he is listing, and he's estimating the gross monthly income before taxes from Denise Richards as over $250,000 a month. He explains this as OnlyFans income, TV show income, brand deals, and appearances. And then he lists out their monthly expenses. Now, when we get into a divorce, The laws of spousal support favor the party making less money. I have a lot of questions about how and why he stopped working and when he stopped working, and if it was part of a lead up to this or not, or if they were starting other businesses together. I don't know. We will not know how this all shakes out in the courts for probably quite a while. And honestly, I hope some of this just goes to mediation. They're able to resolve it and walk away from each other and not interact with one another more, because it seems that that is not going well at all. I also know that in California, when one party is a high net worth individual and another partner is not, then spousal support can be appropriate. But they've been married for less than 10 years. It's not going to be spousal support for the rest of Aaron's natural life or until he remarries. It will be a shorter period of time than that, and they will be able to negotiate that down if they are able to negotiate. But money is going to be a big part of this. And especially since he's like, I don't have any income. All of the income is hers. Money will become a big part of this. Looking now at their expenses, in listing the people who live with him, he lists Denise Richards and his stepdaughter. He lists Denise is making over $250,000 a month and is paying the household expenses. It's my understanding from going through Denise's filings that they are not still living together, but that Aaron and his parents are living in one of the houses that she rents and that she is living elsewhere. It seems they've been living separately for a while. And the average monthly expenses, these are estimated expenses. He's estimating the rent at $18,000 a month. I'm not clear if that is just for the Calabasas home, which is where he's living, or if this is rent for all of the properties, because there are multiple apartments or townhomes. He goes on to say that maintenance and repair of the home estimates to be about $5,000 a month. Childcare is estimated about $7,000 a month for the 14-year-old. Groceries and household supplies, he estimates at $10,000 a month. Yes, I'm reading the commas correctly. Eating out is estimated at $15,000 a month. I mean, that's a lot of DoorDash and Uber Eats fees. Utilities, they estimate at over $8,000 a month. Telephone and cell phone and email at $500 a month. Laundry and cleaning, $5,000 a month. Clothing budget at $20,000 a month. Entertainment, gifts, vacation at $15,000 a month. Auto expenses at $1,500 a month, just over $1,000 a month. But he's estimating the total expenses, total living expenses, are over $105,000 a month. Some of these things will not go into spousal support for him. Again, stepdaughter is Denise Richards' daughter, so childcare expenses will not be part of spousal support because they aren't going toward any children in common. So I have seen some confusion about whether he's asking for $100,000 a month in spousal support. And while he may try to ask for $100,000 a month in spousal support, I don't think that that's where we're going to see this figure get fixed. But so far, Denise Richards is not asking that he be kicked out of the Calabasas home that she rents, but we will see what happens with that down the road, because there is more about that in the filing. But it is difficult for me to wrap my head around these expenses. I can't see a court saying that $105,000 a month is reasonable spousal support for a almost 50-year-old man with no dependents. I just don't see that happening. Whether or not the court says, okay, you do need money to pay rent, you do not have independent income, I can see some of that, but it's not going to be at this amount. It's a lot of money. When we take a look real quick at his breakdown of what their community property is, the one thing that's interesting to note, because he does not note any community property really, the one thing he indicates a partnership interest in is something called Smoke and Mirrors Entertainment, and he lists a 50-50. When he lists other assets, he lists her OnlyFans account. Just put an asterisk on that, because I imagine as we see this divorce move forward, we might see him making some arguments about whether or not he is entitled to essentially residuals or ongoing income from Denise Richards' OnlyFans account, which had also become somewhat of a storyline and discussion on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. But we saw this in a couple cases that we have talked about. It's been a minute, but the ownership of social media accounts and social media accounts actually being an asset is something courts are having to address more and more. And whether or not a spouse can lay claim to an OnlyFans account that, to my understanding, and I might be totally wrong, let me know in the comments, but to my understanding, that is just her OnlyFans account, and she is just sharing photos and videos of her only. It will be interesting to see if he is trying to claim ownership of that, because it's something courts are going to have to address more and more as people say, no, I helped build this account, even if I'm not featured on the account, because we know that OnlyFans accounts, like other social media accounts, but not, can earn a substantial amount of monthly income. So again, put an asterisk on him listing the OnlyFans account as an asset. The next thing that happened in this case after he filed for divorce on July 7th, 2025, is that on July 16th, 2025, Denise Richards filed for an ex parte temporary restraining order, sometimes referred to as a TRO. These are restraining orders that can be issued without court hearing and without a finding of the facts underneath. So the fact that a temporary restraining order has been issued doesn't mean that the court has evaluated the underlying facts and said, yes, this party's right, this party's wrong, this is true, this is not true. It means that someone has come forward to the court and said, I am afraid of this thing happening. And the court said, yes, until we can all get into court and sort it out, we are going to issue a temporary restraining order to keep the parties apart and try to give some level of legal distance and separation while we are in the process of sorting it out. So it does not mean that the court has found any allegations to be true or not true. And I want to be clear as we talk through the temporary restraining order and the next orders that will come, that this has not gone through a full hearing yet. It is the initial order that is issued. And then there will be a hearing to determine if a different kind of order needs to be issued, or if a restraining order, not a temporary one, but if a restraining order needs to be ordered. And that is part of what's going to be addressed on August 8th in court. As part of the application for that domestic violence temporary restraining order, Denise filed a pretty extensive 30-page affidavit. That is the affidavit that included photographs of her with a black eye, where she lined out incidents that had happened July 4th, 2025 through July 14th, 2025, incidents of yelling, of being grabbed, of having her hat flipped off her head aggressively, and Aaron stealing her laptop and her phone, which we are going to get into more in a moment. So Denise lined out incidents early in July, and then older incidents in May of 2025, and then other incidents throughout the marriage that she listed out that you've probably seen reported in the media. Those are all coming from a declaration that she filed to get the temporary restraining order, which was issued. In the granting of that order, the court also set on July 16th a court hearing for August 8th, 2025. So that hearing is set to be had this week. And that hearing is to go through and grant a restraining order kind of upgraded or extended from the temporary restraining order. The court notice indicates that temporary restraining orders are granted and partly denied until court hearing. The partly denied goes to some of the requests from Denise Richards. So a stay away order and temporary restraining order was granted, but some of the things requested were not. It goes on to say reasons for denial of some of the requests were the return of property, and that needed to be raised during the hearing. The court has since changed their mind on this and granted that return of property. We're going to talk about it in just a moment because I want to go through the court's order on that, because I mentioned she was asking for return of her phone and laptop and filed a new request for the court to do that. And the court has now granted that. So the things that Denise Richards asked for in the initial restraining order were now all granted ahead of this hearing in court. And the court indicated that the documents needed to be served 5 days, from the time this was issued. The temporary restraining order was granted. The judge signed it and set that hearing again on August 8th. So let's take a look at the new request that Denise Richards made and that the court subsequently grants regarding her return of property. The next things that happened in this divorce case are that Denise Richards asked to bump forward sooner in time the hearing on the temporary restraining order that is set for August 8th. That was denied by the court, but the court did grant the return of property that we're going to get into. The attorney for Denise Richards, and again, Aaron is still representing himself, the attorney for Denise Richards on July 28th filed for a temporary emergency order regarding that property. And we are going through that document now that the attorney for respondent, again, Denise Richards is the respondent because she is responding to the divorce filed by the person seeking the divorce, Aaron. He is the petitioner. It says, I did not give notice that there will be an emergency court hearing, that the papers will be submitted to the court request for temporary emergency ex parte orders, meaning just one party is asking the court for it by themselves, and they were asking for that hearing. That was not sped up, but the court did grant the request. The attorney said that they were requesting a waiver of notice due to exceptional circumstances. I did not give notice about the request for temporary emergency orders because of the immediate danger or irreparable risk of harm to myself or my client or to children in the case. Children in the case is not the concern here. It is risk to harm to Denise Richards, but these are all checkbox forms. I think the more real concern here was the immediate loss or damage to property subject to the disposition here because Denise Richards is asking for the return of a cell phone, a laptop that he stole. And part of the note here says, as recently as July 25th, petitioner, that is Aaron, has disseminated private information, including nude photographs of respondent from her laptop that he stole to various news organizations. So now we are getting into the very real problem of what happens with stolen photographs like this and the fact that California has some of the first and strongest revenge porn laws in the country. And there are going to be questions, I'm sure, of, but she is doing OnlyFans. So does it still count? Yes, it still counts. The things that she chooses to put on OnlyFans do not seem to be the same things he's disseminating. If he was disseminating things from behind a paywall, that would be a different conversation because they are things that she had already shared behind a paywall, and then we would have a different conversation. It does not seem that the things that he is distributing are things from behind a paywall. If they are things that she had already shared, then it's different. But if these are private photographs that are on her laptop, or even if they were photographs that may have been at one point intended to be shared but weren't, then it's a different conversation. I do not know if Denise Richards has reported these things to the police, but she may have. And if she reported the stolen laptop, stolen phones, and disseminated private photos to law enforcement, it is very real that we may end up in a crossover between not just a divorce case, but a criminal case, because you can't disseminate photos of someone, stolen or not. We've talked about this in the Tom Sandoval, Rachel case, where they were on FaceTime. He surreptitiously recorded the FaceTime, and then that was disseminated or taken off of his phone. So there's a conversation, regardless of whether the images or videos were sent to an individual, if they are not meant to be seen publicly and not meant to be shared publicly, then it is a problem, and it might end up in a different type of criminal legal battle. Because if she hasn't alerted the police yet, I would be surprised. But yes, I'm sure there will be conversations about whether or not those photographs or photos that had already been shared. It's a different conversation if they had already been shared and were behind a paywall versus if they had never been shared and he was then sharing them. But also to share them to media outlets is not something that the court is going to look favorably upon, especially if it seems that the intention there, and I says, if it seems that the intention there is to harass, embarrass, annoy, there's already a temporary restraining order here. Doing things to harass the other party, even if through third parties, is going to be a problem. Law nerds, I am so excited to share our sponsor with you because when I first received a Lola blanket as a gift, I could not believe how incredibly soft it was, and then had to fight my family over who gets the blanket, or everybody just getting into mom's personal space because mom is cuddled up with her favorite blanket. So let me tell you, when they reached out, I was like, oh yes, the Law nerds will love this, and it's going to be their go-to gift giving because the Lola blankets are just that good, and you want to delight the people in your life. Law nerd, when I tell you that this is the snuggliest blanket, but I cannot tell you through the screen how incredible the weight is, so you are gonna feel snuggled and cuddled. And it's not gonna leave fibers all over your clothes, so if you get up, it's not gonna be obvious that you were just under your blanket. So Law nerd, if you're ready to find out for yourself why Lola Blankets has over 10,000 5-star reviews, I have an incredibly generous offer for you from Lola Blankets for 35% off. That's right. Our listeners for a limited time are getting a 35% discount off their entire order at lolablankets.com. Just use code LAWNERD at checkout. So head to lolablankets.com, use code LAWNERD at checkout to get 35% off your entire order. And after your purchase, if they ask where you found them, please let them know it was the Emily Show. So get ready to wrap yourself in luxury with Lola Blankets. I'm just gonna be here. We should get back to today's episode. So continuing to look at this request from Denise Richards' attorney, they indicate that Aaron, as recently as July 25th, had disseminated private information to various news organizations. And then that is signed by the lawyer and filed in court July 28th, alongside the request for the additional emergency orders, which involve not just the restraining order, but the emergency order to return the property. The attorney for Denise Richards filed a more thorough request and then attached the 30+ page breakdown of the difficulty in the relationship and the allegations of domestic violence that Denise had already filed with the court for the temporary restraining order. So more is being filed here. So this is the July 28th filing for the temporary emergency orders regarding the return of property. This has the wrong date on it. It has since been updated to that August 8th date for that court hearing. And the attorney tagged this saying, in the facts to support the request, see the attached declaration of Denise Richards. Aaron Phypers has repeatedly violated the temporary restraining order, including disseminating to numerous news organizations on multiple occasions since being served with the TTRO on July 17th, 2025. Private information from my laptop, including text messages and nude photographs of me that he stole. What we are going to look at now is her explanation of what went down with regard to her laptop, her phone, and what information she is alleging he has stolen and distributed. This is the beginning of her declaration. She says, I am requesting the court grant my request in my July 16th DVTRO, or domestic violence restraining order, which requested the following: that Aaron return, and this is the request that was written and denied in that initial temporary restraining order. So it's written in the first person. And so if I switch back and forth, that is my brain, and I apologize, but she is writing this in the first person that says, Aaron, return to me my laptops, including but not limited to my Mac laptop, return all pictures, recordings, cell phones of mine, that he be prohibited from using, delivering, copying, printing, or disclosing text messages, emails, photos, notes, or other content from my cell phone or laptop or any other of my electronic devices. She is requesting that that be returned to her attorney's office no later than July 29th, and the court changed the timing on that when they granted it. She then says that the court ordered that her request was denied until hearing and is asking the court to expedite that. She then goes and says that the exigency that she is setting forth, meaning, hey, you denied this originally until there was a hearing. You wanted to hear from both parties about it, but now this has become an untenable situation. So what Denise Richards puts in her declaration of exigency is, As set forth in detail below, Aaron has repeatedly violated the TRO, including disseminating to numerous news organizations on multiple occasions since being served with the TRO July 17th. Private information from my laptop, including text messages and nude photographs of me that he stole. A true and correct copy of the proof of service of the TRO is attached. On July 18th, after Aaron was served with the TRO, my attorney sent Aaron an email reminding him that he was not to disseminate any information from my laptop or any other device, and that doing so is disturbing my peace. Specifically, my attorney wrote the following in an email. The email is also attached. Quote from the email: disseminating in any way any information to anyone, including any news outlet from any laptop, cell phone, or any other device of Ms. Richards is disturbing her peace, abuse, and a violation of the TRO and a violation of law. Ms. Richards will be notifying the police if you do anything mentioned in the above sentence. And then that is attached. She goes on to say that on July 19th, a news organization, TMZ, posted a video interview of Aaron on their website where Aaron states, quote, because I have all the pictures of Denise having an affair and other stuff, and they were texting back and forth, and I caught it. Her and I were watching that show Traitors. Like, why is Traitors catching strays in this? Traitors is so good. Anyway, my soliloquy about how much I love Traitors aside, he says to TMZ, quote, her and I were watching that show Traitors on the sofa where the girls stay at the townhome, and she fell asleep. Remember, she has not been living with him in the Calabasas home. She has been staying elsewhere. We'll go back through and find the date of that. It's in part of her original declaration in the original filing for the temporary restraining order. He said, I just had this feeling. I have her passcodes to her stuff. I'm going through it and I go in to delete. I think he means he went into the delete like file folder, not he was going to actively delete things, but who knows? He says, I go into delete and I see these text messages that are super inappropriate. And I'm like, what the hell? So he's accusing Denise of having an affair. Look, that's a reason to get a divorce if somebody's having an affair. That's not a reason to steal all their digital devices and distribute their private information to media outlets. That's not how that works. And that's not okay. Later in the same interview, Aaron states that on another day, quote, I opened her computer and all I did was hit refresh or upload or sync or whatever. You know what you did. I don't believe that he was like, oh, I don't know how the cloud works. You're looking through her shit and you have all her passcodes. In his statement to TMZ, he is saying, all I did was hit refresh or upload or sync or whatever, some iCloud thing, man. And it repopulated all the text communication she deleted from her stuff. And it was jaw-dropping. And I took pictures of it because I was like, what the hell is going on here? And I found out she was talking to the guy during the surgery. Then she starts changing her passwords. You can't see my phone. I don't know if he's talking about her not being able to allow him to see the phone, but she started changing passwords. This like, I just hit something and everything appeared doesn't make sense to me. And I don't think it's the full story. But this again is her lawyers retelling an interview that he said to TMZ. The declaration goes on to say, in a further attempt to stop Aaron from disseminating private information from my laptop on July 21st, my attorney released a statement that was published by numerous news organizations stating, quote, in addition to the repeated abuse perpetrated by Aaron, they call him by his last name, but by Aaron against Ms. Richards and throughout the party's marriage, Aaron has continued to harass Ms. Richards since being served with the TRO by, among other things, disseminating private information from Ms. Richards' cell phone and laptop, which he stole. These actions continue to disturb Ms. Richards' peace. We have warned him in writing not to disseminate any information from her stolen cell phone and laptop, but he continues to do so. She will not be responding to his false allegations in a public forum and will be addressing his abuse in court. So that is her lawyer's statement to the media, indicating to all the media outlets that whatever they might be receiving from him is stolen. So we might end up in a very kind of celebrity reality TV specific intersection of, if the media knows that these are stolen, where is their responsibility to not disseminate it? And I think this was her lawyers not just putting him on notice, but her lawyers also putting the media outlets on notice that if you get text messages between Denise Richards and a third party, those have been stolen. And you are kind of on a heads up that if you participate in disseminating those, then it's going to be a problem. And I don't know if we will end up seeing Denise suing media outlets for sharing what they know is stolen private information, and if those outlets would be covered by some of the shield laws. But it's one of those asterisks that I'm keeping an eye on. And will we see Denise Richards choosing to go to law enforcement, not just for the violation of the restraining order, but potentially for the distribution of revenge porn, depending on what and where those photos came from? We need a little bit more information. But Denise's lawyers are going to have their hands busy, not just with the divorce, but potentially with all the other fallout from the divorce. The declaration says that on July 25th, the news organization Daily Mail published a news article containing several photos of private text messages that were stolen by Aaron from my laptop. One of the photos Aaron took of my laptop contains a picture of me with my breast completely exposed and another picture of my buttocks. Another picture in the article is a picture of my phone being held by Aaron's hand with my private text messages. Aaron told the Daily Mail that he, quote, discovered 107 raunchy text messages on my phone, end quote. And then they attached the Daily Mail article with the nude photographs and pictures of the text messages, redacted because this is now a public filing and they don't want to continue to reshare what the Daily Mail had shared. But there should be a digital trail of when he's taking these photos that's going to make it fairly easy for law enforcement to look into if he's holding her phone and taking photos of her digital devices. She goes on to say, quote, I am in extreme distress and greatly disturbed since Aaron has been repeatedly disseminating private text messages stolen from my laptop after the TRO has been issued, and I have warned him numerous times not to disseminate any information from my cell or laptop. It seems that those warnings have all come through counsel, which is appropriate. At this point, I very much hope that these parties aren't having any direct contact with one another. They shouldn't be because of the TRO. And no matter what he says, she should not be contacting him. If he tries to contact her, that should all go through her lawyer, because this isn't going to get less intense. There's some digital work that's going to have to happen to make sure he doesn't still have access to her iCloud and things like that. Hopefully her lawyers can help her with that. Not all lawyers are tech savvy, but some are. And I hope they are helping her navigate locking down her digital world, because digital stalking and digital privacy is a huge part of patterns of abuse, something that isn't talked about a ton and something that is very, very difficult to untangle. When people worry that their ex or the person that is doing this to them seems to know where they are, seems to just show up, seems to have an inside scoop, there's normally some digital trail to that that can be difficult to find or unwind. And often people are told, no, they don't really know where you're going to be. No, it's just coincidence. It's not. Don't believe that. If it feels like they know more than they should know, there's probably a digital link. Have somebody help you find it. It goes on to say, as a reminder to the court in my July 16th request for the DV restraining order, I described to the court how Aaron accessed my private messages on my laptop on May 21st, 2025. He also disseminated my personal information to TMZ and Page 6, but they refused to report this private, personal, and intimate information because they knew it was stolen information and subject to legal prosecution. I don't know how we know all of this information, but I wonder if those at TMZ or Page 6 gave Denise Richards the heads up. I hope that they did, because it seems that she has information about what TMZ and Page 6 knew about this information. And I really hope that they gave, probably not her directly, but her people the heads up, because as much as I will rip on the media when they do something wrong, letting her know that this was being shopped around is the right thing to do. And I really hope that that's how that went down, that they said, hey, just so you know, this is what's happening. I really hope that they reached out to her representation and that's how she knows this. To briefly go over this, because it is in more detail in Denise Richards' filings, but the briefer recitation of him downloading things is from May 2025. There is more in her declaration, and she says in the kind of summary, quote, while I was asleep and without my permission, Aaron went into the settings of my laptop and through my iCloud account, synced my iMessages to my laptop and then downloaded everything from my iCloud, which included my private text messages, onto my laptop and then took pictures of my text messages, which were then on the laptop. So he went onto the laptop, she's saying, and synced her texts through her iCloud on the laptop so he could then pull them all up without having access to her phone. She alleges that he then woke her up and screamed at her, quote, you fucking bitch. I went into your computer and saw your text messages because your laptop was open while we were watching the movie on Netflix. I clicked sync iMessages so that your text messages would appear on your laptop and everything downloaded, and I took photos of everything, you lying bitch. And that is what she is saying he said. It goes on to say that later, while she was using the toilet, he came in and hit her and then started screaming, give me your fucking phone. Throughout the declaration, she describes other instances of physical and verbal abuse. I'm not going to go through all of those instances, but she does break down where everyone is living, and that is what we're going to look at real quick. This is from her declaration that was part of the restraining order and then became part of the emergency order that we were just talking about. This is July 4th through the 14th. She says that in June 2020, we rented a family home in the Calabasas area. I lived there until 2023. In 2023, I moved out of the family home due to marital issues. So it seems to me if she had filed for divorce, the date that she moved out of the home in Calabasas would have been the date of separation. He listed the date of separation as July 4th. It seems to me she would have listed that separation in 2023, which could change what he is monetarily entitled to. So I imagine we will down the road see a fight over the date of separation and her saying that the date of separation is when she moved out. She said, when I moved out of the family home, I leased 3 townhouses. One is a studio and one townhouse was used as an office, and one townhouse where she's been living since 2023. She said, I prefer not to disclose the location of the townhouses to preserve privacy and daughter's privacy from the media. I think that is fair. If the court needs it, the court can do that in chambers. She goes on to say, I'm the only person on the lease to the 3 townhouses. Beginning on July 4th, 2025, I've repeatedly told Aaron that he is not allowed in any of the townhouses, and he has repeatedly entered the townhomes unexpectedly. If you're on the lease, it's time to change the locks. On July 4th, when Aaron was at the studio townhouse that I was occupying at the time, I told Aaron that his family had to move out of the family home, which caused him to become enraged. And then she describes him grabbing her arms tightly and aggressively, screaming names at her and the rest of it. But this does not end with just an incident with Aaron. She describes Aaron's father. Aaron is almost 50 years old. Aaron's father coming over and also yelling at her at the townhouse. And then she includes a text message that she sent to Aaron's mother, because it seems that Aaron, at almost 50, and his mother and father are all living in the Calabasas rental that she rented in 2020 that she has not been living in since 2023. So in this text message that she included, this is from Denise Richards' phone. This, she says, is between her and Aaron's mother. And at 10:40 a.m. on July 4th, Denise receives a happy 4th of July message with the American flag and then responds at 11:49 a.m. Thank you. Sadly, I'm filing for divorce after the holiday. It's time and I can't do this anymore. Aaron needs to stay the house, not where I am. So hopefully that will happen. I know he's under a lot of stress. I am too. Anyway, wanted to let you know, if he comes near me and threatens me, I will file a restraining order. Make sure he is aware, please. So this is Denise talking to Aaron's mother saying, I am going to have to file for divorce. My reading into this, just sitting in my office recording a podcast from everything I've read in this case, saying I need him to just stay at the house where you guys are, not where I am. I wonder if this text message is what prompted him to file the divorce by himself, pro per, on July 7th, because she indicated on July 4th, I am going to file. And then he was like, I'm going to file. I'm interested if this prompted that filing, because it seems to me that's a logical conclusion. However, when we are dealing with divorce, logic is not always what we can ascribe, because we are dealing with a lot of emotion. So what happens next? Well, after that emergency order filing that we just went through, where Denise Richards' lawyers said, look, you granted the initial essentially temporary restraining order, stay away order, which is a do not harass, do not come within 100 feet, do not have contact with, but denied the return of property until it came to court. Then the request for the emergency order got filed, where Denise's attorneys were saying, hey, he is now disseminating to the media and arguing to disturb and harass, in violation of the restraining order, private text messages and intimate photos of Denise Richards. We need this property back, and we need an order. The court wanted to wait till the hearing on August 8th. We can't wait for the hearing. So this is what the court ordered on July 28th, 2025. Temporary emergency order. Other, return stolen items and prohibit dissemination. So ahead of the hearing on August 8th, the court said, we're not having a hearing on this. This is an emergent situation. It all needs to be given to the lawyers. And the court wrote out their order saying, petitioner, restrained party, who was Aaron, shall not distribute or disseminate any image of respondent protected party, Denise, intimate body part, or any image depicting Denise engaged. And I'm swapping respondent for Denise just so it's easy to keep track of who's who. Denise engaged in any sexual act or any image of masturbation involving respondent without the express written permission of Denise or order of the court. So the court knows more than we do about what might have been in some of these images, and that is why it is a specific order. It goes on to say that petitioner Aaron shall not disseminate, distribute private sensitive information that he downloaded from Denise's phone and or her laptop. And then it cites case law to another divorce case. It also says that Aaron, petitioner restrained party, shall make arrangements with Denise's attorney, and names the attorney Brent Berman, to return Denise's personal phone and laptop within 48 hours of receiving this ex parte order. So July 29th, 2025 is when this order goes down, and the court says within 48 hours of receiving it, you need to be making arrangements and returning her devices. So on August 8th, I imagine the first thing the court is going to want to know is, has this been done? Have the devices been returned? And I'm sure one of the things the court will want to know is, are there any copies, digital copies, hard drives, downloads, photos on the phone? Are there any copies? And just so we have fulsomely explored all of the court filings up to the date of recording in this before the next hearing, the last filing as of the recording of this podcast is the notice of service of process, indicating again that hearing date on August 8th, and indicating that the attorneys served a copy of the emergency order to Aaron at his home. And it is a Calabasas address, so I'm not going to pull it up because I think it's probably still where he's living, and we don't need to put that out on the internet, even though he seems, according to what Denise has said and what we've seen in the Daily Mail, to be fine putting everything out on the internet. I'm not going to be the one to do it. So he has been served. He was served on July 31st. It was filed with the court on July 31st, and that gave him 48 hours to make arrangements to get this returned. On August 8th, we will see if that has happened. It's going to be the first thing that the court wants to know. There is going to be a lot, I think, of court movement early on in this divorce, especially if Aaron remains representing himself, because there will be a lot of locked at horns, I imagine, with her attorneys. I hope that she gets her devices back. I hope that he is abiding by the restraining orders. I hope that she is able to feel safe and secure. But once there has been not just a physical violation, but also these digital violations, it is going to be a difficult road to move through this divorce in such a public way. And who would have thought that after the Charlie Sheen divorce, we would be talking about Denise Richards going through a divorce that looks like it is not going to be easy and that has already gotten fairly ugly. I would like to say that this should all just play out in court process and that there is process for this, but given what's alleged here, it's not realistic to just say this should all be able to play out in court because there are substantial allegations of physical abuse. There are the allegations of the digital device theft and things being disseminated. And so I hope that her attorneys have given her great counsel on not only how to enforce that restraining order if it's violated, but empowered her to do so, and that she has people around her to give her that support, because I imagine this can feel incredibly isolating. No one should be taking your devices. No one has a right to your devices. No one has a right to the photos that you may choose to share. No one can share them for you, even if you have chosen to share them. What they threaten to do to themselves is not your responsibility. And that was woven through all of the allegations here. And Denise Richards has not taken the steps of attempting to kick him out of the home that she is renting in Calabasas. She has not tried to remove him from any of those properties at this point. But it is something I will be keeping an eye on because this has become already so much media fodder, and it seems that he is continuing to play into that, though I'm sure there are some saying her filing for the temporary restraining order with photos is her playing into that. But I don't know how you get a restraining order without filing evidence with the court, and not all court things are sealed. And maybe that's the answer in this case. Maybe the answer is that everything in this case should be sealed. But one of the things that has been discussed quite a lot that we hadn't talked about yet is that there were echoes and concerns of this when Denise was filming Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And these are things I had forgotten had happened on the show, because truly my memory of what had happened during Denise's times on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills were bravo, bravo, fucking bravo. But a lot of the Bravo accounts that I follow, and you guys know I love reality TV, brought this up. The first place I saw it was on Face Reality. And I think, honestly, that all of the media outlets grabbed it from her Instagram account, truly. But I wanted to take just a brief moment to take a look at a clip from the reunion that illustrates some of what was happening on camera in this relationship when they were filming Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. So the seasons Denise was on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills were 9 and 10 before she came back as like a friend or a guest in more recent seasons, which were the 2019 season and the 2020 season. So I'm going to pull up this clip from the reunion, and you will see that they are all over Zoom because it was the lockdown reunion. So yes, they are all over Zoom, but it illustrates a clip of something that happened during the show that Andy was asking the women about. And Denise, to me, seemed uncomfortable discussing. And given everything that we've now seen, we can understand why. Again, this is coming from Face Reality on Instagram, where Aaron seems to be heard under his breath saying, "I'm going to crush your hand." We're going to play that and how they discuss it at the reunion.
What was going on there? I believe he said he was going to crush your hand.
Yeah, he's going to crush my hand.
Baby, don't say anything. We're on the camera.
Baby,
we don't need to do this.
A word.
Don't tell me what to say. I'm going to crush your hand. Stop it.
I did, because I didn't even know that either. And I played it for him, and he said, I don't even remember saying that. I don't know why I would say that, because I'm afraid of you.
Why is he afraid of you, by the way?
No, it's in a joking way.
Oh, okay. Ladies, what was your reaction when you saw that?
Andy seems uncomfortable.
Zero tolerance. Zero.
I didn't hear it on the show, but I saw it on social media, and that's when I was like, oh my God. And I was, I was worried.
It doesn't surprise me that Garcelle was worried.
What was going on there?
And one clip of Denise talking about divorce.
Tossed to the curb. I'll never get divorced. Even if we hate each other.
It's not easy being married to me. And
it is not. And she said it. And yes, that's true.
On many levels. Not easy. But
That's it. I'm done.
Yeah, I'm never getting divorced again.
Yeah.
Even if we hate each other, I'm not going to
We
get
just have
divorced.
different homes or
That's
something.
fine.
But we're not going to hate each other.
We have enough homes, but yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, honey.
Love you, baby.
I love you too.
The intention seemed to be there that Denise didn't want to get divorced and was like, you know, even if we need to live in separate homes, which maybe gives a little illumination to why she hasn't asked for him to vacate the Calabasas property. But I worry that this divorce is going to be protracted, especially if he is not seeking advice of counsel and is representing himself. But things that happened on the show can come into evidence in court, and in this case, likely will, because they are relevant to what's going to need to happen. I will keep an eye on this one. I am not going to get into every detail of all the filings and allegations made against each other. I am interested to see if the dissemination of private information goes anywhere, and I will be keeping an eye on that because, again, it doesn't matter what an individual chooses to share. That is their choice. What someone else takes off their devices and shares can be a crime. And we will see how that goes forward. I will keep you in the loop after the hearing on the 8th. I'm sure that media will be there, even though they can't record it, and give us some reporting of what happens then. And then we'll see the court's minute order. So let me know if you want to stay on the loop on this one, but it is not going to be a quick resolution. And we will see. I still don't know if there was any prenuptial agreement in this case. I don't know if the parties have spoken about that anywhere. I don't know why he closed down his business and has listed himself as self-employed and unemployed at the same time. So there will still be questions that I'm going to be looking for the answers to in court documents, even though they may have been shared elsewhere in the media because, well, at least court documents have some sort of filing standard. And truly, it's going to be a bit of a difficult one to navigate through. And we will just have to see. So, Law Nerds, you wanted the legal behind the headlines on this divorce with Denise Richards. It's difficult. So I will link everything down below if you want to go take a look for more information on this case and some of the things that I did not cover explicitly. That will be down below to engage with as you choose to. For those of you that appreciate the coverage without every single detail, of course, I've got you. We want to know the legal behind what is happening in the cases, but we don't need every detail that's going to end up in the headlines because there's so much else happening legally that's impactful in this case. So to all of you, take care. I will see you soon. I will be sharing lots of DCI from Indy. So follow me along if you want to see it. For those of you that don't worry. The season is almost over and we will be moving on to other legal topics. There's lots going on the live stream channel. If you want to get caught up, make sure you have the Law Nerd app at lawnerdapp.com, and that will keep you in the loop with everything that I'm streaming as we get ready for the Donna Adelson case at the end of August. And I've got way too much travel between now and then, but eventually I'll know what day it is and what state I'm in, and it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a Law Nerd. I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Thanks for joining me. If you enjoyed this episode and don't want to miss updates on your favorite cases, you're going to need the Law Nerd app at lawnerdapp.com. That way you can stay in the loop on the cases that matter most to you, and you never know when you're going to catch feelings for a new case. So make sure you get it for free on iOS and Android. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being a Law Nerd.